right? We got a call, a 911 call from a non-involved person that said that there was an elderly gentleman that was being threatened with a knife at the CVS. That there were children, and they gave a description, 10 to 12 years old, there were 3 of them. So we had descriptive information to know exactly what our suspects looked like, right? At that point, our suspects. So the officers, 2 officers, get the call for service because, again, there was a violent assault that was supposed to be in progress. It was an aggravated assault. So what the officers think they're responding to, possible robbery in the CVS. And we have this suspect information.
CVS didn't go.
So they're responding to the CVS to locate the elderly gentleman that this non-involved person called and told us was being victimized. So they go there to see what happened, try to find the complainant, get any information to confirm if we do have a violent assault or there's knives involved, right? So at the same time that that's going on, when the officers are responding to this call for service, for police service, what happens is the description is going over the radio, right? So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for basically children, our suspect descriptions that was given by a non-involved person that was witnessing these events. So in that, I have my bike unit. There's a bike unit that operates out of the 1st District. Some of you may know, I'm not going to ask if you know or you don't know. I get a lot of compliments on the bike unit. There's a sergeant and 4 officers that ride together. They were deployed already in this area because we were having some issues with robberies, right? So I respond and I react when I notice that something is not right or something is going on in a particular area within the district. So my bike unit was deployed in this area. So they hear the information, they cycle on over to the area because we have the information that the children, and I'm going to call them children because they are children, that they went eastbound. Absolutely, absolutely. They went eastbound, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well, okay? So they're coming in, and they see the children in the 1300 block of E. They make contact with the children. And let me say, I've watched all the body-worn camera videos, and I know that that is something that you all want to talk about as well. But I watched for a couple of different things. I wanted to see what the call was for. I want to see what the response is like. I want to see what they're saying, what is actually happening. I'm looking at tone. I'm looking at words that we're using, right? Because that is what we do when we look at the videos. We're kind of critiquing. So I watched all the videos. The bike unit comes up. They encounter the children, and they start talking to the children, right? And the children immediately start telling their version of what happened. And so the bike officers are listening. It's really kind of informal. Yes, do we have them stopped? Absolutely. Because we're investigating a possible crime, right? A possible, so we do. We have them stopped. And so the bike units, the bike officers, the children, they're talking. There's a rapport. It's a respectful rapport. It's, the children are telling them what happened. And literally 3 minutes into that contact, I hear one of the officers tell the children, "You're not in trouble." You know, we're listening to what the kids are saying. They're still listening to the radio because remember, the 2 officers are still over there talking to the elderly gentleman. And now, when you look at that video, he was really shaken up. He was really scared. And when he's telling the story, and it was an elderly gentleman, and when he's telling the story, he perceives the children said there was a knife involved. They had been following him because they thought they were in a construction area playing, maybe doing something that children do that maybe they shouldn't have been doing. So his interpretation was that the children were following him, followed him into the CVS, had a knife out, and he was legitimately scared. And you could see it. And he says it, right? So these are the 2 primary officers, we call them primary officers, that are having this conversation while you have the bike units a couple of blocks away talking to the children while they're waiting for this to resolve itself over here so we know what we're working with, right? So the officers say no robbery, no assault, right? So that's what they tell them. So now the bike units know, okay, we're going to handle this a different way. They tell the children, maybe 3 minutes in, you're not in trouble, right? So they're just having banter back and forth and talking about what happened. The children gave their version. So they're still waiting because they have to wait for that primary officer to come over, because what do we have to do? We have to fill out a report as well. So we have to get the information, and we want to tell the parents what happened. So we're asking for, they made that decision within 8 minutes on the scene that they were going to be reaching out to guardians and parents to have them come down so that we could explain what happened and release the children to the parents, right, or the guardians. So we know that about 8 minutes into this, that this is what we're going to do. This is how they're going to resolve this situation, okay?
If I may interrupt, when did you know that they didn't have a weapon?
So I'm still on.
I mean, but you're past.
No, I'm not. I'm not there yet.
We'll come back to that, sir.
I'm not there yet.
I promise to let you ask your question, I promise.
And I promise I'll take any questions that you have that I can answer.
Yeah.
So what happens is, while they're there waiting, you have the primary officers come over from CBS after they've talked to the gentleman who told them everything that happened, gave us information, but he wanted to go home. He wanted to go home. He didn't want to go forward with any type of charges or any type of prosecution or report. So the two officers come over to the scene, and this is where you have a female officer, I think you saw in the video, you have a male officer. The female officer was what we call the primary officer, so it was her scene to handle. She was responsible for making sure that it was handled, that all the appropriate reports were done, and all of that good stuff. So when she comes over to answer your question, sir, now she spoke to the alleged victim, the elderly gentleman that said that they had the knives. The question she asked the bike officers that are on the scene, and remember now those are 5, so that's 5 of the 7, and then you have the other 2 come over from the initial scene. So that's why you have 7 on the scene, because that bike unit travels together. So she comes over, and as she's talking, she asked the sergeant, she said, he said that they had knives. Did you pat them to see if they had knives? That is when you see them come, and they do, because we can do a pat down if we think that there's weapons involved. And technically knowing what the call was for, they should have done that from the beginning.
Yes.
But what I saw in that was that they were trying to make the children feel comfortable in the conversation, because this uniform speaks in and of itself, right? When we come, people know. We don't have to say, I am the police, I'm here.
When 7 of you come.
Unconstitutional.
And when 7 of you come,
Yeah, I explain that.
Just civil rights violated. They weren't in trouble.
So let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I live in DC.
Me too.
I'm raising a son in DC.
I understand.
I want for us to get this right.
But you got it wrong.
I feel like we don't have any room
I
to
want to
get
hear
it
the
wrong.
outcome.
So we're coming from the same place. So I'm gonna keep it.
Let her finish.
Keep it respectful. I just asked you to give me the
I
same
want to
thing
finish. I want
because
to
I
know
do
the
care,
outcome.
and I do want to get this right because I do have a child that walks down the streets as well.
I
Okay,
wanna see
I
if they
have
got in
family
trouble.
members, and I want them to be treated well. So with that, I would have preferred that they had done it initially to know, but they didn't. And so she asked that question. Did you check to see if there were any knives?
After they wasn't in trouble.
Yeah.
That's part of it. After they wasn't in trouble.
Remember, she was on the other scene. So she doesn't know what the conversation was because she was over at the CBS. So at some point, they have to get together and kind of talk this through, which is what they did. They huddled and said, this is what they said, this is what I think, this is what we're going to do. We're going to call the parents, right? So that is what they reach out to do. They get the information from the children. You know, one of the things I talked to the officer that was responding to the scene, I felt like she was stern in her tone with them, right? I felt like she was stern in her tone, and we had a conversation about that. Now, she's coming from, you know, an area where she just lost her son to gunfire. She just lost a son last year to gunfire. He was killed. And she was coming from more of a mother approach. I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want you to get hurt, right? I did think her tone was strong, and that is something that I myself, as the commander, counseled her on in that conversation. And she said, yeah, she said, I don't want them to go out here and get in trouble. She's very passionate about the children. So with that, contact was made, and the children were released to an adult. I have since reached out to some of the parents. I've spoken to one of the parents, and the goal of this, and the goal in everything that I do, and I want y'all to understand, I do this job because I care, right? So I do want to take this as an opportunity. I always offer, because there are so many outreach activities I know that I, as the commander of the 1st District, engage in because I feel so passionately about our children. So we have a lot of outreach activities. I asked her, can I bring her and her kid in to some of the activities that we host? I host a lot of outreach activities in the 1st District so that we can build, because the last thing we ever want the children to think is that we're not here to keep them safe, or that we don't want to see them be successful, that we don't want to see them get good grades, we don't want to see them be safe. Those are all the things that we want for the children. So I invite any of you to partner with us in that respect as well, because it is something. We have to protect and serve, but we also have to do outreach, and we are accountable as well to make sure that our children get to where it is that they need to be. So that is just something I'm passionate about it. I respect you all, and we cannot do this job without you. It's not a us versus you all. It's not a you all versus us. This is a community issue, and we have to, as a community, make our community safer. I just came from a homicide scene up in the unit block of M Street, where a 22-year-old young man was shot multiple times and gunned down and killed. That does not bring me joy.
Okay.
That does not make me happy. That is something that absolutely breaks my heart. And we're not going to be able to fix this without working together. So I came here. I want us to be transparent. I want you all to understand what occurred that day. This wasn't a self-initiated activity. This was a call for a violent crime that appeared to be in progress. We don't ever want to see our children be arrested for a violent crime, a petty crime, any crime. Does it happen? Absolutely it happens, right? But this was a situation that we were able to work it out. The children were released to their parents. There were no charges. There wasn't a felony police report made or anything of that nature.
Was it a weapon?
Mm-hmm.
Was it a weapon?
Oh, again, when I said, so they patted them down, no. They didn't see, they
No
did not find a
weapon?
weapon on the children. Absolutely not. They did not.
So
No.
they was criminalized before they were criminalized.
That's for clarity.
No.
They
I
were
don't feel like
criminalized. They were
In
criminalized.
this situation,
They were
we got a
criminalized.
call and we engaged the baby. We engaged the children.
The children were criminalized.
We had to investigate.
By-
You gotta give us that. We have to. Let me ask you, what would you have had us do?
Call their parents.
We did.
Or handle it the way that your policemen handled it in the
We
beginning.
have to know who they are and get their
Okay, so
information,
you
right?
admitted-
I can't
Hold on,
call a
please.
parent.
She asked the question. She asked the
I
question.
don't know
Speak to one another.
who I'm talking
Okay?
to.
Yeah.
So you could have called the parents if your officer had patted down the children, which I really don't think they should have in the first place. But you admitted and acknowledged that they didn't follow that protocol.
No, what I said was I would have preferred that they did it in the beginning.
But the
That's what
Constitution
I
says
said.
they had to
I
do
did.
it first.
I said I would have preferred that.
Exactly.
I
Okay,
did.
so before any more engagement,
Mhm.
their parents should have been called.
Yes.
And waited for the parents.
And waited for the
Waited
parents. It was totally
Because I
legal.
believe other people, other children in this community would not have been treated that way.
Absolutely.
No, exactly. And you know that
Stop
And
too.
that's a fair point. That is an absolute fair point. And let me help you to understand that I'm here to hear from you and hear what your concerns are. I'm going to tell you what happened in this situation, but believe you me that I'm listening to what you say, and those are going to be discussions that we go back to my district and we have those discussions.
Please
right?
listen that black people are being over-criminalized in this community.
It was
Say that again.
criminalized.
Black people are being over-criminalized in this community. Please listen to that. Please listen to
Okay,
that.
I've got a list of people here who have already written their names down to speak. I'm gonna call them in order. And anyone whose name I do not have on this list, I'll call right after that. First person is Andrea Zimmerman.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you for the time to speak. That's what I'm actually thanking you for. I am here, and my neighbor Zach Weinstein, I don't know if you got on the list as well, but we collected signatures from neighbors in the community who are very upset by this. You see it just by the room that we're here today. Maurice has said a lot of what all these troubling problems are. 7 armed officers officers to 3 children, even if they travel as a unit, none of these optics make sense, but it's not just optics, right? This is a real actual problem of children in this community who overwhelmingly are black are the ones enduring the trauma from officers from 1D. That is an incredible problem. When we look at this as a bigger problem, though, this is not an isolated incident, and that's the problem to me. This is a pattern. When you look at Capitol Hill and Lincoln Park in particular, from 2010 to 2017, 88% of the people stopped. Now, these are adults, not juveniles, but 88% of the people stopped were black. This is not, and when you look at then who lives in the neighborhood, those numbers are not parity. That is a problem, and that's something that we need to understand and we need to have a better sense of. What I did not hear you address as well, though, is the mocking tone of the officer and mocked the woman making the video. And I want answers for that. And I also want concretely, you say you're gonna go back and talk, but what does that mean? I want concrete steps to hear what you're going to do, what consequences there are. You said you didn't like the tone. You said you didn't agree with the protocol. What are you gonna change?
Okay. Thank you. That's
Or what
fair.
actions have been taken?
That's fair. So let me try to, and if I don't get something, just say, hey, you didn't answer this one. Okay. So when we talked about, you can come closer to videotape, or when they were leaving, because what happened is when they were waiting, when Sergeant Evans and the officers were waiting for the 2 primary officers to come back, he said he made a decision. He said, well, let's kind of go over there. Because he's like, this had to have been a communication issue. Let's just go over and see what's going on, right? So you see the children walk, because they know they're going back to CVS. And so the officers are back. And as they start to walk and they get in front of the hardware store, that's when the 2 primary officers came back, okay? So that's where the discussion moved to from the initial, a couple of steps that they took. So what the officer was saying in there, right? He's saying you can come closer, you can videotape us, right? You can videotape us. That was that's what you say, whether that was
Sarcastic.
portrayed or it came out that way, and that's a discussion point as well, right? That's a discussion point as well with the officers, because what he was given is not what was perceived. So with that, we have to have that discussion that you may be thinking that this is what you're giving off, but we have to be so conscientious of what it is that we say and what we give off and what we project that we got to be mindful of that. Because he's saying, hey, we're not doing, you can come, you don't have to stand up.
He was laughing.
He was laughing.
laughing.
Be real.
I got a video of the same officer doing that to me. I have a video of the
They
same
were
officer.
joking with the children. They were laughing with the children. They were greeting
The children weren't
other
laughing.
citizens
No,
as
why
they
would they
came
do
by. They were talking to them. So
The children were crying. Let's stop. Let's stop. Let's stop.
now remember, I have actually been able to watch everybody's body worn camera.
Well, can we see it? Why can't we see it? Why can't we see it?
We can go into that discussion because, and that is why I asked our FOIA officer to come to be here.
I got a case
But
against
there's
her.
something-
She lies.
When you talk about why can't you see the videos,
This should be great.
they're juveniles. These are juveniles.
You black out their
And
faces when
they're
they're on the train.
Really, we put their photos on the internet. We put
Yep.
the video of them on the internet. It will never go away. But we are bound by not disclosing their records. We can't.
To an elected official? To an elected official.
Where's accountability? Morgan, with all due respect,
Thank you.
all due respect, you sent me an invoice, your folks sent me an invoice.
Absolutely.
$387.
You're charging.
You brought it to privacy after
So
you
with
charged me $5,000, I sought a fee waiver. And then I get told, not only do I not get a fee waiver, I don't get to see the video. And then I got a mayor who goes on
Yes.
camera and claims that I'm a voyeur.
Yes.
I'm a voyeur.
Let's talk about
I'm an
respect.
official. I was on the same ballot she was.
Woo!
So
Respect.
please, Madam Mayor, tell me
Where's
why
she at?
I'm a voyeur asking
Look
for
at her stepping
accountability.
up like
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
I'm
Thank you.
Captain Save Another Hope.
Oh, wait, no.
I am going to
Yeah.
give to you what it is that I have responsibility for, what I have.
That's what you have responsibility for.
I am not the FOIA officer. I
And
did
she's the
not
FOIA
write-
officer
Hold
in
on,
my
I'm not
case.
done. I'm not
She's
done.
gonna do the
I'm
same
not done.
thing.
Did you all have actually read, because there was a lot of work that went into creating this body worn camera.
Yeah, we fought it, and this still isn't the law.
I'm sorry?
We fought it, and we were there when they were talking about this part of the law, and y'all are misusing it.
So you have, so
And
you have the
she knows,
background.
and
You have
she
the
knows
background
because she's
on
charging me
who can see
$6,000.
and that we have to redact and everything that goes.
Nah,
into the
but that's
actual
actually not the, that's not even you guys doing it. Be real about who the taxpayers are paying to actually redact the videos. They're not paying, it's not something that even you guys do. And you have body-worn camera people in MPD that are paid to do this that have nothing to do. We can't get body-worn cameras when you have 50 officers.
They don't have nothing to do.
You said what?
Who doesn't have
Absolutely. They don't have anything to do. If you guys are backed up, but it's not even you that do the body camera, that you guys do all the redacting.
Are you saying that our staff's not busy?
I am. Because you're not giving them to anybody.
Busy patrolling black people.
No. And whatever the FOIA officer
FOIA
says,
Officer, ma'am, would you state your name and?
y'all need to come to my case on the 25th, the 25th.
And the issue about releasing body-worn cameras.
Please do.
Your name first, please.
So, I'm going to try to talk as loud as I can. I had a dental surgery earlier today, but I thought it was important that I still come out. So, if I'm not as loud, please raise your hand in the back and I'll try to project loud, but I am struggling here today. I am Inspector Benedict T. Parker. I'm the FOIA officer for the Metropolitan.
She got demoted as an
Department. And just in response to Ms. Goggins' statement
Oh,
about our
did you say my name?
camera program, our staff doesn't only handle body-worn camera requests, they also handle FOIA requests. They are FOIA staff, so they're handling the paper documents in which we receive requests as well as body-worn camera video requests. And there's a lot that goes into the redactions of it. It is not just the incident that's happening, like the Fragrance incident, but the officer who has the body-worn camera, his radio is very close to that camera.
Oh
The
my
camera
God.
is still picking up radio transmissions that include people's names, their addresses, their social security numbers, their criminal history. As officers may be doing a traffic stop, they may be running someone for a warrant status, they could be responding to another radio assignment. Those things are still being dispatched and they can be heard very clearly in the body-worn
So why
camera
wouldn't you fix
video.
that?
That information has to be redacted. There's also passerbys who are walking, a lot of the videos taken on public street. We can see innocent bystanders walking past who are not associated with the incident.
Is that in the statute?
Yes, ma'am. That information has to be, or those persons walking through have to be redacted out. And the redactions are not, they're taken out of the video, they're blurred. So there is a lot of work and technical work that goes into applying those type of redactions with that type of blur.
Their salaries don't pay for that?
I'm sorry.
Their salaries don't pay for that?
Salaries pay within the process before.
So what are we paying for?
Once the video comes back, what they do is when we receive a request, they look at and analyze the request to see if it's something that MPD handles and that we handle. Then they have to look it up. Once they find it, if they find it, then they review the video. to
Wait,
make
if
sure-
they find it?
If they find some videos they're deleted every 90 days and they're not associated with the crime. So they automatically purge after 90 days. So yes, we do have to look and see if they still. If we have it, they will review the video to look and see if it's something that we can release. There are times when we can't release video if it's inside of a private residence, if it involves domestic violence, if it involves a sexual assault. There are times when the videos can be released. That's also written into the law. They have to analyze that and make sure that it's something that we can.
You released the video of Javon Hall inside of his house.
Being shot.
So, I didn't release that. I think that was something that the chief does. The chief is the ultimate agency director.
So the chief
All of
can-
these records are subject to whether he wants to release them or not. He can sue, and that's written into the law. If there's something that he feels is so important, then he can. But this incident involves a juvenile record. The incident you're speaking of does not.
But I thought you just said you can't go into a residence. So my point is that none of this stuff seems to be consistent, even with what the ANC commissioner is saying, is that there's so much ambiguity that every single part of this is set up to where you don't ever have to give this information. If you've known for 3 years, if you've known for 3 years that the body camera footage picks up the radio, why wouldn't you change the way that they are on the officers? Like all of these things, and just because.
Can I answer your question? You can't change the body worn cameras they have a very sensitive microphone to pick up the sound. Anywhere that is on the officer's body is going to pick up the radio. The radio is also attached in close in proximity. So I'm not sure there's going to be anywhere that we can put the body worn camera that is not going to pick up the radio transmission.
So we're just screwed.
So I'm just curious, like, why
Why
you
do we
guys
have body
have
cameras?
like an over $500 billion budget,
Right.
And somehow this
Y'all
seems
can't
like
figure it out.
impossible, like an impossible problem. But there are so many
Some
other
reason they have body
like
cams.
jurisdictions in this like country who have somehow figured that out.
That you can't figure it out for $500 billion.
What are we figuring out?
How to do the redaction without charging us twice.
How to do the redaction?
Without charging us twice.
So
Like
we're
somebody
not
doesn't get a
charging
salary
twice.
or.
If it's a first party video, we don't charge requesters who are first
No,
party.
I'm talking about the
This wasn't a first
taxpayers
party.
are paying for these people's salaries and then you're charging us again for
We're
work
not
that they
charging
do.
them for their salary.
I
If you
know.
look into
The taxpayers pay for that part.
If you look into the law, it says that any expense that is incurred directly by the agency that's not delineated in the law, in the FOIA fee law, is passed on to the requester.
All right,
It
so
says
let's
it
talk
can be.
about
It's
that
like-
point. Let's
Yep.
talk about it because I'm the one who did it. So I'm looking at it, invoice.
Mm.
And it's invoice 2019 BWC 0064, and it says, to me, Commissioner Kraft, elected,
Mm.
taxpayer dollars.
Right,
Otherwise, I was paying this out of my own pocket.
exactly.
Redaction of 229 minutes of body-worn camera video at $23 per minute. $23 per minute to redact. So that was gonna come to a sum of $5,267. Then we're gonna have a review of 229 minutes, 4 hours of BWC video at $40 per hour, with the first hour free, thank you, pursuant to DC Official Code 2 TAC 532. And that was gonna come to, we're gonna go for $120. That was $5,387. I keep saying $5,387 because that's the invoice the MPD sent me when I asked for this video. And in that email, I said, hey, I'm gonna be sharing this with the community because I wanna make sure the community trusts the police. The stated goals of the MPD body camera program are trust and transparency. $5,387 does not equal trust and transparency. It equals an obscene amount of money. So I have a problem with that.
And
Second
non-transparency.
problem I have is when I saw the fee waiver, I got told, hey, not only are you not getting a fee waiver, but now we're getting privacy. So I started my career in the military, folks, and one of the things I learned about was rock management. And you'd be told, hey, go for this rock, but then we're gonna go find you this rock, and this rock. That's what this reminds me of right now, and that's why you got people who are incarcerated.
Yep.
Because they don't understand what's going on. And I'm an elected official, and I don't understand what's going on, except for the fact that I still don't have the video. But hey, I'm not paying $5,387.
And then you tell us, I've seen the video, you can't see it, trust
Right.
me, I know what happened
Why
on
would
it.
we trust you?
I can't show you it if I trust
But
you.
trust me.
But how are we gonna trust you when you don't show us what you've
Understand,
seen?
like what I keep hearing about accountability.
Can I address her comment?
Yes.
first? Is that okay? So, we did talk, and I did tell you about the fees, and I told you about the number of videos and how long they were, and I did try to work with you and say we could maybe work on one video. But I have to give you the cost up front before we start.
I understand that, and see, that's the problem with your argument.
Yes.
You tried to work with me on the cost. So that was week number 1. Week number 2 is when I get the email from the MPD General Counsel who says magically, nope, can't do it, no fee waiver, and we're not doing it for another
Well,
reason.
let me finish.
That's
We have to disclose to you the potential cost of your request before we start.
But it's not a potential because you're making her pay for it.
We're not allowed to give you the cost after we
It
process.
says, hey, make all checks payable to the DC Treasury.
I mean, that if we would've gave her that money, she could've got the video.
Right, and because your cost is estimated to exceed $250, you'll be required have to pay in advance for DC code up to squad.
Exactly, so I have to disclose what the potential
So
cost
you
would be
disclosed to
in
me
advance.
that this video is worth over $5,000. Okay, it's a valuable piece of video.
That's crazy.
But I, if I'm gonna go down the legal route, would have relied on that and probably gone to my counsel, my fellow ANC and said, hey, out of the allotment that we received from the DC government, that comes from your tax dollars.
Right.
Why did we spend $5,000 for this video? Because we're trying to increase trust and transparency. This is a circular argument that doesn't make any sense.
But then when you don't, it's like buying something and somebody, the seller reneges, and then still bills you, expect
Yes.
you to pay the bill.
No, we never
How is that
expected
right?
her to pay. This is.
Wait, you never expected her to pay? One more time.
They never expected her to finish my.
No,
Okay, one at a time, one time.
We don't expect anyone to pay for a FOIA request if we're not releasing it to you.
but you didn't
But
say
the
that.
law-
You didn't say that,
I
though.
said that to you on the telephone when I spoke to you. We went over.
But does that make sense? You don't pay it if you don't get it.
We had several conversations.
It's a waste, sweetheart. It's no transparency and no
Okay, I'd like to
trust.
get to the next person who had a question on this list. Virginia.
No transparency and no trust.
I'm Virginia Spatz. I have lived in ANC 6B for 30 years. My husband and I raised two very fair-skinned blonde children here, and they were only ever stopped by police if they were with black friends. And I am very concerned, have been the whole time that I've lived here, about how we criminalize our young people in this neighborhood. And I'm also very upset that we have some means of dealing with this, like the MIR Act, which would, come at a different approach. And I also want to know, don't we have any kind of officers or any kind of counselors or something that could have been called, until even the parents got there? You shouldn't be hassling these disabled children, even if they committed a crime. Aren't they entitled to some kind of counsel all the time? So many things are wrong with this, and it happens way too often. And it isn't okay to just say, well, we'll look at the video camera or whatever. I mean, we need cultural changes, and we need to stop criminalizing our neighbors based on their skin color.
She know that. She know that. She know that.
Okay, so,
She know that.
so the question in there,
Is why isn't there somebody who's supposed to come and be with juveniles? And also wouldn't the MIR Act help us deal with this kind of situation?
And what if they would ever release some dang data?
so, let me say this. So when we talk about, protecting and serving in law enforcement, right? And we talk about, the population that we serve. We talk about the training that we give to the officers, right? Because they go through, once they go through, the officers go through the hiring process, the onboarding process, the psychological exams, the background training, and all of that stuff, they go to recruit training, right? And then officers also have to go back to professional development training every year, right? So as we develop our curriculums and we have the discussions on what are the important, aside from the law, the Constitution, how to handle property, all of these other things that we have to teach them just to go get the basics of their work done, right? We have incorporated a lot of training as it pertains to implicit bias, as it pertains to how you deal with other cultures, how you deal, how you police community-based in as you go about your daily endeavors. It's a huge focus of the agency. It's a huge focus in the training. It's a huge, when you talk about, the communities are, what they're made up of and how we treat folks, that we're supposed to be respectful, and we should be respectful. We should treat people the way that we want to be treated, right?
How many hours?
So, I'm sorry?
How many hours of that training do they get?
Within the initial training or when they go back to professional?
The implicit-
Initial.
I think the implicit bias, is it 10, 12 hours?
Oh, Jesus.
12 hours.
It is ongoing.
It's wrapped
But-
into multi-faceted.
But I mean, the additional, not just putting it in the other training elements, but that initial, I think it's a full day.
It's more
Yeah,
than 12
it might be 2 days, but I can get you that information.
Appreciate
But
it.
this is something, now keep
Don't
in
charge
mind,
me
we
for
still
it,
have
though.
online training, we still have roll call training. There's a lot of different training that we have with the officers, and this is why we try to weed officers out that shouldn't be here, you know, in the hiring process, not hiring them. And then there's a whole process that we have for officers that don't follow our policy, don't follow the law. There's an accountability that we have with the officers. We do actually discipline our officers. We do.
But can't the chief reserve? The chief can actually decide that he's not going to take any of the actions that both internal committees decide that if they recommend that an officer be fired or suspended, the chief can turn around and say, I don't want to sustain that. He has the actual last word on that.
There's an appeals process that officers have.
But
right?
he's the
So
last
let's talk about-
official, right?
But they also have outside
I wanna talk about these little
agencies
boys.
that they can appeal to as well when they're fired or if they get a huge suspension or something like that. There's a whole process here, right? So I say that to say that we want to treat everybody fairly. And I think that I don't want to forget that in this call, we don't make up suspect descriptions, right?
Well,
We
they
don't make that up. That's something that we get from the caller, something we get from the witnesses.
3 little boys.
Something that's developed from video, or something that we get just during our investigation. So when you talk about, and I don't know where the stats came from, or
You
what
guys,
those stats
they're your
actually
stats.
entail, because I encourage my officers every day to go out and talk to everybody, contact everybody.
Oh, they do.
There was a comment about the officers were I don't know if I should take it that they were too happy, but that they were smiling. You know,
They were laughing. They were mocking them and laughing them. They always do.
Video? I'm sorry.
We can't see the video, so everything you're saying, we're taking your.
I just feel like you have like a different idea of what was happening in that video than like everyone else in this room.
I have a question, and I have my hand up.
At the end of the day.
I have my
at the
hand
end
up,
of
and I
the
want a
day,
question.
May I get your name, please, so I can put you on this list so I can have some order here?
Nene.
Yes, Nene, N-E-E-N-E-E.
And
Thank you.
April.
April.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Your
there-
name in the brown?
Oh, Natasha.
Natasha, thank you. Okay, I'm trying to go through these because I think there's a lot of people here who do want to speak, and I want to provide that opportunity. So I'd like to kind of maintain some order rather than being a free-for-all discussion, if I may. I'd like to, the next 2 people are first Zach Weinstein and then Maurice Cook. Zach Weinstein, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might want to answer the question.
There's
I'm gonna
a
get
couple
there.
of questions out there that I haven't answered yet.
I'm gonna get
If
there.
you have your chance to ask.
Well,
What question do you want me to
my
answer?
main question, I guess, is aren't there people that are trained to be with juveniles that should have been called if you were going to stop them? And if your description was, in fact, of children, shouldn't there be some kind of system to go and take care of that situation differently than if it were grown men or grown women? That's what I really want to know.
So one of the, yes, that's what I was coming to with the question that you asked. So when you talk about the children, and let me say that the video that was recovered from CBS, that the gentleman, the elderly gentleman, and the body worn, we had the right children that we were contacting. So let me say that there wasn't a misunderstanding and we stopped the wrong. We did not. So what we have what's called a youth division, right? To your point, is there someone that we call to counsel them on the scene? No, there isn't. But we do have a youth investigations division, right? So if there is a crime, a violent crime, or if there's any crime that we're looking at, a child under 12 could possibly be arrested for, that we're going to make an arrest, or we're leading down that road, we notify our youth division. And we have a conversation about that because we don't want to arrest children that are under 12. So there is a process in place if we're going to arrest, or if we think we have enough, to arrest, to have a youth division detective or official become involved in that.
Never seen it.
Okay? So, but to call someone to the scene and say counsel them through this contact or this stop or this preliminary inquiry that we're doing, no, there isn't. But keep in mind, we have the Youth Investigation Division, and we have a policy that if the child is under 12, it's a higher standard that we're going before we make that decision.
Zach Weinstein's next.
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question before I? So you said you ascertained the kids in question didn't have a weapon. At what point was that you determined that?
That was when you saw on the video.
I mean, like what time? Sorry, like time.
Oh, that was probably about 12 minutes into it.
And how long was the whole?
Like
detainment?
39, 40 minutes.
Okay, so I think a lot of people have covered most of what I wanted to say about the fact that almost 90% of people who've been stopped and frisked in this neighborhood over the past 7 years are black compared to a much lower percentage of our neighbors who are black. So the main thing I want to focus on is there's at least, it sounds like at least half an hour, and I think the video is like 4 hours long, so I'm actually kind of confused about how the whole stuff.
What video is 4 hours long?
The 229 minutes, oh, that's added
all,
up,
those
sorry.
are like
Sorry.
7 videos.
Sorry,
Right,
okay,
so
so.
they're like 39, 40 minutes,
Right.
the videos.
So we're talking about 30 minutes in which these kids were still detained
Detained, yes.
after we found out that they hadn't done anything wrong and that they didn't have any weapons on them, or at least that they were not in any trouble because the guy didn't want to press
If they
charges.
weren't in trouble, why are they detained? Oh.
So they were detained.
Or frisk. Or frisk.
So, and frisked. So to me, it's like we're making this way more complicated. At the end of the day, what happens is these kids were detained for an inordinate amount of time by an inordinate amount of officers, and it's part of a pattern, and we're talking about transparency and trust, but you're just asking us to take your word for it, and at the end of the day, what I'm hearing is that almost any single incident could be disqualified from being shared with the public because you're talking about something on the radio, people walking by. What utility is body camera footage if there's no situation in which we can have a guarantee that it'll actually be shared?
Transparency.
And if not, then what measure is there for accountability and transparency,
None.
especially when, in the case of juveniles, basically what I'm hearing is if there's an issue where a police officer acts inappropriately, there's some sort of misconduct and a juvenile's involved, and they're not arrested or charged, that we can't see the footage no matter what, not even our elected officials can. So in the most egregious cases, it's the easiest for MPD to not have any accountability to the public. So I know I just asked several questions, but I would like to hear you speak to that.
I'll answer real quick to the number. Last year, fiscal year 18, we had 222 body worn camera requests. We only denied less than 10. So we do actually give out the body worn camera. There are some redactions to it, but we don't deny in full because of those redactions. They are actually still given out.
That's not to the public though,
They
right?
are given out to the public. These are publicly released documents. That's what FOIA is. And we do not charge first party requests. So the majority of the videos that we give out don't have a fee associated.
Why did you charge me for? Why are you charging me for mine?
I don't have a body worn camera request with you.
No, just you said FOIA in general.
I said FOIA is a these are publicly released documents. That's what I was saying to him. Body worn camera video, we don't charge a first party question. You don't have a body worn camera request. You have a regular FOIA request, and I don't believe you have one pending at the moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you really talking about my case? That y'all lied? Because I wasn't in court. This is great.
For his
Guys have to come on the 25th.
for payment in the case of
Okay,
Wait, so
Maurice
do you-
Cook. I'm sorry, you,
Well,
go ahead.
case being dead?
You have to answer that question.
Oh, yeah, I know. I think the other thing,
Let me see.
the other thing, so when we talk about that, that's how long it took for the parent to get there. That is, we had it, and we actually went and found